What I'm going to do here is kind of build a model for philosophy, for three branches of philosophy. And the first thing I'm going to do is address the idea of modeling itself. And Lakoff tells us that lives of individuals are significantly influenced by the central metaphors they use to explain complex phenomena. And so if you take something like the black and white, you take thou shalt not kill, well, then all of a sudden it got a little bit gray when it's self-defense. And then it even got a little more complicated and became a spectrum of things when we started looking at war and a collateral damage and stuff like that. So the whole idea is that it matters how you frame the discussion. And it matters because it matters in how then people will be able to explain the complex phenomena. And it matters as to how the whole discussion will be influenced by keeping everybody in the same framework. So I suggest that there is a philosophical framework that we might be able to use. And it basically takes into a worldview with the two basic components of what we understand the world is and what we understand the world ought to be. And from what we understand the world is and what we understand it ought to be, we then build our value system. And from our value systems, we then establish what our policies are. In philosophy, I believe the three branches of philosophy are involved in all of those. Metaphysics basically and ontology is basically focused on the ought, on how we believe the world ought to be. Epistemology and knowledge is how we understand that the world is. So it advantages the is side of our worldview. And then once we marry those two together, and we establish what are going to be our ends and then the means we're going to use for those ends, what we use there is the field of philosophy called ethics and morality, where the ethics says, that what are our ends ethical, and are the means we're going to use to achieve those ends, are they also ethical? And that's kind of how I think philosophy all fits together. So let's take an example. In a world in which we had a monarch or rule, all of a sudden John Locke came along and said that all men are free and equal, and therefore we shouldn't just follow a specific monarch. And from that, we built this end that says we want to maximize every individual's chance to have an equal say in their own history. So that was the value that we had. And so then the question became, what means are we going to use to try and establish that value? And that's when the forefathers came along and built a constitution, a democracy, and the democracy is maximizing it by allowing the majority. And then George Mason, who's one of my favorite of the early founders, came and said, yeah, but we have to add the Bill of Rights, which protects the individual and also protects certain rights of speech and things like that, so that it's equal and people don't get drowned out even by the majority. So protect us from the tyranny of the majority. And so basically what I'm saying is, though, this philosophy framework with the is and the ought and the ends and the means, I think really fits almost all of the way that we can look at philosophy and philosophical problems for all of our different institutions, for our political, our economic, and our social institutions. Thank you.